Yeah, I think you can go to the next slide. Uh, cool. Yeah, I guess. Hello, everyone. This again, we just like going through the team. This is basically Uma, Shayak, Nikita, me, Arnab, and Padmanabhan. We are the five who have conceptualized and worked on this project for almost 6 to 8 months now. Yeah, it's been quite a long time since we kind of started. And one of the interesting things that kind of has come up in this project repeatedly is how fast has the nature of technology changed in a way that while working on it, even we couldn't keep up with what was happening in the field of AI art and Im- image to text generation. Yeah, we can see the screen. Yeah. Can you move to the next? Oh, not really. Can you go to the next slide, please, after this one? Yeah, so I think just to contextualize what we have done is basically we've used this whole project was envisioned as a book from the viewpoint of a whale, of how it would kind of look to a whale as they go around uh, on their journey through the seas day in day out. And what we wanted to bring in was this almost surrealistic feeling of watching things underwater, and also kind of when we were kind of exploring these technologies, we found image to text. So VQGAN had just come out last year in sometimes in March, and we started on this project in July. So image to text, for those who don't know, is an algorithm where you basically feed in keywords to this machine learning algorithm, and it starts dreaming of images, and it generates images. So the more specific your prompts are, the more like there's a whole science and art to the prompts itself that we'll not get into it unless someone's interested. We can talk about it later, but essentially how it works is like you feed it words and it generates these images for you. So Shayak, I'd like to kind of bring you into this as to like how what was your like, because you were the first one who basically amongst all of us kind of took the bull by the horns and basically started it at a time when the technology was so basic and yeah yeah
Yeah.
just tell us about your experiences,
Yeah.
how it was. Yeah.
So, like when I discovered like this, before like working on this project, I had like zero idea about collab notebooks and about these like AI image making algorithms like as a whole. So when we like Arnab, you shared like that article, like one we saw that one article where like a person, like it's not an article, it's like a short story that a person created like using VQCAN, using the power of VQCAN. That actually inspired us to like try it, try it for our own project. So like the first thing was like it was really hard for me to zero down on a notebook because there are so many like collab notebooks available. It was like with minor modifications. So like it was hard initially to like find a notebook, like to stick to a notebook because there was so much to explore. And also because it is not like a traditional software where you have like tools and everything is clearly defined, so you have to like do a lot of googling to like get around it at first. So that is how we started. Like the first image that got out, I was amazed at it because like I haven't I thought of this like idea, or I hadn't like experienced AI like dreaming or creating this kind of imagery. Like I had like previously heard about StyleGAN where you can like where you use data sets to like generate these likes of those images, like from the data set like it would generate similar images, but text to image was completely like it almost felt like magic. But although like it's extremely a technical thing, and hats off to the people who actually like combine those models like VQCAN and Clip to like give us this. So yeah, like basic like the first thing was like a lot of experimentation using like initial images, using text prompts, and like the sea of text prompts that there was on the internet, like to get like a kind of the kind of result that you want, it was really hard. So yeah, so Uma also joined in, and like Uma and I, we generated a lot of like images. Like some of them we could keep, some of them we couldn't like use them. But in any case, like all of it was really interesting because it was also new to us, and we were just having fun with the tool.
Yes, I think the way
Uh,
the images were created and the same prompts at my end gave a different result, and at Zayek's end gave a different result, and it was a very fun experience trying to figure out how it goes, how the process goes.
Yeah. So Uma, I'd really like to know more about what was it like for you to, who's coming from a pure, visual design like background and as an illustrator to kind of meet something so alien and like what, like, does it scare you? Do you kind of worry about the future of illustration or like what was your kind of whole emotion while working with this tool?
First of all, first emotion was like utter fascination because the way the images were created was so random and at the same time so mesmerizing that it was a lot of fun to experiment with. Coming from a very visual sort of background, it was a lot of interesting way of how we can try and get an image that is, more like curating the image rather than rather than creating it, and that was a very novel process for me because in usually as an illustrator, I normally just know what I'm drawing and sort of the results are more or less, you can say, around 80% of what I am aiming at. And with the AI, the fun part was I have no idea what is going on. So to try and get some semblance out of how the image is going to be or how it is going to look was a lot of iterations, and sometimes the results are mind blowing, as you can see, and sometimes they were just really crazy. So that was the fun part, and yeah, it was. It's scary because it's a lot of. Sometimes it's a lot of code, but then luckily I had Sayak and you to kind of handhold me through that process, and it's not that scary after a while. You just have to understand the tweaking of how it goes, and then it's a lot of fun. Then it's
Yeah,
just go crazy.
yeah. The first barrier is like itself like trusting a bunch of code to like get access to your account. Like the first like tab that comes up is like this was not authored by Google. So are you sure you want to give it access? So like
Yes.
for someone who doesn't like work with collab notebooks or aren't aware of like codes, like can read code and like knows like the ins and outs of code, like it's very scary to first like click on such a thing and like then go on and like go on with the like generation process. And initially like even the default number of like cycles that it ran, it was huge. So like it used to like run, it was running and running, like it would run infinitely if we don't stop it, or like until like the like Google like stops us from like generating it. So it was like we didn't know when to stop, and like not necessarily that it would give us like good results if we kept on like refining it.
Yeah, I
So
think
that
the
also took
initial,
some time.
yeah, the initial iterations up to like when what we found was the up to around 300, 400 were really beautiful, and then it started getting skewed
Yeah.
and then distorted in a way that it was very alien or did not have any sort of understanding. So there you could make out that it is absolutely an electronic generated uh, computer generated random image, whereas the illustrations that you're seeing right now on the screen, they have a feel of a human touch, they have the understanding and the intelligence. So I guess
So
knowing when to stop.
yeah, so this is like much more refined. Like like the tool now is so much like developed right now. So before, like when we started, initially started, like it wasn't like this refined. We wouldn't get like such good images out of them. So you can see like if you see like our video, like the images there and our game, the images that we have there to what we have here now, like you can see the difference in the quality and like the how
And
good the AI is getting.
that's in a span of less than 6 months, right? Like
Yeah.
this huge leap of.
And it's also amazing because like the whole community works on it. Like people like they take a notebook and then they make modifications of their own and then they release it to the public. So it's like because it's also like open and it's open source, so we can like anybody can use it really to make their own stuff.
But I think
So
this.
I think
Yeah. So go ahead.
I think one of the things that's kind of emerging is this idea of curation, and I'd like to kind of like also bring in Nikita to kind of talk about how her experience was trying to curate the text that was kind of thrown out of GPT-3. So, I mean, just to contextualize it for everyone else, the next, like currently, the book that we are working on involves it's a storybook where both the text and the images have been generated by AI. So the images have been generated by Disco Diffusion, which is like a spiritual successor to Wikigugan, which Shayak and Uma were talking about, and like GPT-3, which was for the text. That was basically yeah, I think right now is currently the de facto
Yeah.
probably one of the best algorithms. So yeah, Nikita, like what was your kind of experience as a like trying to work with that text?
So I think initially it was a lot of failure. That's what my experience I think starts with, because I realized that really depends on how we were trying to take real life, like real whale stories. Migalu, Knock, all of them are real whales, and we were trying to actually take that story and create some element, add some element of fiction, and then create a narrative that children could relate to and would also sort of very subtly instill this knowledge of how actually whales help in climate change, apart from the gorgeous photographs or images that were taken. So with the written content, I did struggle a little bit just to make sense of it, because I think with what I was feeding in initially, it was a very like there were no threads in the narratives that were coming out. But later on, um, I think I also needed to filter out. I realized we couldn't have the exact story of the whales in the books, and therefore we kept elements of the real whales in terms of characters, which I think has also influenced the images. And then we let the AI. So we just fed the AI prompts of how whales help and how each of these whales had very particular sort of characteristics. So, for example, Nok, who's a beluga whale, is used to imitate human sound. So that was something that we thought, okay, this is something that should really reflect within the story. And I think at that point, when we decided that, okay, these are characteristics of each whale that we do want to bring into the book, and otherwise give the AI a free hand to sort of weave its own narrative, then it started making sense. So, from all the content that was generated to the book that we have now, it's been a long journey, and it's also really needed me to step back and just be an editor and be like, okay, we have to make sense of this narrative and of the greater narrative that all the three whales sort of tie together, and climate action, because that's at the core of the book. And then it really did start to fall into place, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Amongst all of this, I think the most interesting part was that Padmanabhan, who was like doing the sound, was probably the most human of all of us because it was all like it was he was not there was no AI, there was no machine, it was just him only. So Padmanabhan, can you talk us about how you had to like create almost a like a human music to such a synthetic process of image and text generation and uh,
like Arnab said, I didn't like do much with AI and image processing as much, but with every meeting, with every talk, I would just be there and I just see like them putting up the newest, like newly formed images with the algorithms, and I still can't believe that this is coming out of a computer, like an algorithm, like AI machine. I still can't believe that. But yeah, so my process was pretty simple. I just wanted to understand or play with the sounds of oceans and whales. So I kind of went around and tried to make like a melodic soundscape out of it. So kind of went around trying to find whale sound samples and ocean samples from open source archives and such, and then brought it down to Ableton and then use the generative sequence. So that's the only part where maybe I can call it an AI coming in. So I coded with this program called Orca, which is poetic in its own way with the project. And yeah, there I kind of sequenced the samples and played with it, and then created a skeleton out of it. And then with the post process again, the human part comes in. That's yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think before I ask any question, I think that's about it from our end. If people have questions, please feel free to kind of chime in. We'd love to kind of answer anything.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in and add to the fact that Arnab is also one of the key members because of whom we had a understanding of this AI space, and he has been hand-holding us in quite a number of ways. So let's not forget him here, and he's the expert guy when it comes to
If we could, can
Yeah,
we
understanding.
I
all
have
dance
I
like Arnab?
Yeah, yeah,
I
go
have
ahead,
green
Manish,
hair,
please.
so
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that should tell you exactly.
Arnav is the one who introduced VideoGAN to us in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nitin, I can stop
And
sharing
And
the screen.
Yeah, and he
yeah,
took us through the whole thing. Like I'm going to stop sharing now, right? He had a whole session where we spent hours, and he took us through the whole thing. So yes, I think that's also been the real strength of this team, that we've really supported each other through tech and content and all of it.
and the most important part, we were in a virtual
yeah,
fellowship where all of us are actually in very different places. And at that point, Arnab was in the US, so we had our sessions late at night or early morning, and it really worked. And that's the bond that we formed through these past months. And we are lucky that it continued beyond the fellowship, frankly speaking. Otherwise, usually it fizzles out, and we went on to go ahead and uh, put our work into another fellowship, which helped us propel it further in a way.
Super.
yeah.
So
So I think
I mean, before we continue, I just was hoping that the audience can do a nice round of confetti or dance or the numbers, so that we know that you enjoyed yourself, and you have more questions and you don't mind hanging around for a little bit longer, even though
yeah, yeah,
it was short in timing. Yay! Awesome. Uh, okay, so now how do you guys want to take this to the next stage? Do you want to do Q&A first, or do you want to send people out
yeah.
into the open, into your space, and from
I
there
think we
on?
can do Q&A first, and then
So, if someone has a question, just like ping me in the chat, or there's a Q&A section apparently in this as well, in the chat tabs. If not that, Ahmad, I can see you talking, but you're not in spotlight, so maybe we can't hear you. So if you come maybe very close to where I'm standing, maybe in the middle, throwing confetti and with a drum, beating a drum, or near Simon, maybe we can hear you. Yeah. And I can quickly show you, if you want to see what the Q&A looks like when you're sharing the screen. The Q&A is, this is the chat here on the right, and there is a Q&A section here where you can submit your question. Okay, maybe I'll ask one if nobody's interested. I am always full of questions and doubts. Uh, so, uh, so firstly, are all the images that we see here made out of GAN? Are none of them hand drawn or photoshopped or have any kind of human interference in them? One.
No.
No.
Second is, I mean, because I have blue hair and not red or green hair, are the images prompted from like a zero noise, or are they like you gave it a little bit of a drawing or a sketch or an image and then it came to it? So you just gave
Uh,
something something beluga whale, beauty beauty something something. Oh my God, fear fire, and then it gave you something, or was it? Uh,
yeah. So yeah, I think I mean, let me see the images again. Yeah, none of these have anything. There's no init image. There's no noise profile that we fed it. It was basically curation of prompts that we got better at over a period of time to kind of extract more intentional images out of. So that's what you see basically.
Yeah, in our last meetup, there was someone who spoke about the whole idea of prompt engineering.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is kind of this is more like prompt poetry, but we have a couple of questions now that have come in. Our first one is from Catalina from our team. If you have any plans to further expand this, I'll just read them out together and then you guys can answer them. And why did you decide to use AI to generate the images for the story and not use any different medium for visualization like drawing or photography? So very good questions, both of them. The second one is from Ahmed. So please take it away.
Um,
I can answer the AI question. I think one of the thing was there were like two main criterias. One was like we were sure that we wanted something from the specifically from the perspective of the whale. So that's why this surrealistic kind of look fed into our style pretty well. The other thing I think at a more conceptual level was this idea that if we don't really save the whales, this is the only way we can probably generate images of the sea or like images of underwater, because if nature is gone, synthetic is all that will remain. So the idea was also to create something which was like beautiful but also could be interpreted as profoundly sad if you looked at it based on like the implications of a world where only there is synthetic images.
in a way,
And what
also,
was the other question?
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. No,
In a
no.
way, also, one of the reasons, as Arnab said, we don't really see a whale. So none of us actually, very few of us have actually seen a whale in our real life. And so trying to imagine the environment that they live in, trying to identify with it is very difficult. So how do you draw people in? You create a world of imagination, and that's what we thought of going in that direction. you know, and that's where we took it on from.
Super. Sounds good. So
So
the second question was regarding any plans to further expand the project.
Yes.
If you don't mind keeping it brief, then we can ask people to spread out and look at the
Yes.
question.
So quickly, basically, what we wanted to do was one is we started with the idea of choice-based games, and then moved ahead into an AR book. So definitely, if you see the interactive screen, there is a choice-based interactive story that is there, where we are asking people to go ahead and decide how the whale survives or what it does, and learn what it is all about. So we would like to go ahead into an exhibition, like a real immersive exhibition, where we can expand this universe and maybe a metaverse at some point. So yeah, there are plans for it, and let's hope we keep continuing with it.
yeah, so like the game that we created, it's still like it's a prototype, so it's
Yeah,
not like a finished game. So we would of course like to like complete the game, like make a proper game and also a storybook and AR storybook. So
exactly.
Yeah, and
yeah.
our future plans extend further than that. So even if when you do see the book, if you do get to see the physical book, it has a lot of engagement embedded within. Like it's filled with activities that the children can do, just like the game. So the basis is empathetic gameplay, because it has to be experiential. And also we do plan to like have a whole collection of backstories of the whales that we can then start working on through our Instagram and all of that. So yes, there are huge plans. Let's see how we go now.